One of the most classic questions that sometimes comes up in a sales job interview is at the point where the interviewer produces a pen, typically, or maybe an object from a drawer, and says, "Okay, sell me this pen." And basically, what the interviewer is looking for is your on the spot ability to deal with an unexpected question, perhaps, under some pressure, your creativity, thinking on your feet. And really, at the core of this is, do you have a sales process? Do you have a structure that you can take with you and apply to any given situation, even if it's on the spur of the moment, unexpected? So what this episode is going to cover is just walking through step by step what could be a model way to answer this question, and hopefully make you come out of it looking fantastic. Take care, and let's start. Now, a fundamental step before going out and attempting to sell anything to anyone is having a really good understanding of exactly what it is that you're selling. Now, in this scenario, that's not really happened. You've just been thrust an object and told to get on with it. But here's where you can buy yourself some time and give yourself a chance to really formulate what your question is going to be without looking stupid or stuck. So upon accepting the pen, the object, I would simply say, "Okay, great. Just give me a second. I'm going to familiarize myself with the product before I go out and present it. And just give yourself a moment to have a little look through, examine it, feel the weight of it, think about who the end user for such an object would be. Just try to give yourself a few little nuggets of information that you can be using when you're presenting this pen to those just handed it to you. And of course, he or she is very familiar with what the object is. And this is going to also allow you to just sort of calm yourself down, take a bit of a break, and then at this stage, put the pen away, out of sight. Maybe don't necessarily put it in your pocket. He's going to think you're going to steal it or not give it back, or raise that person's anxiety. But yeah, just put it away out of sight because you're not ready to present this yet, and then move on to the next step. Now comes the time to qualify the person who's sitting across the desk from you as the buyer, or a buyer who has the authority to actually purchase the pen that you're going to be presenting. So many sales conversations end up going sideways because too late into the process, the salesperson has realized that the person sitting across from the table actually isn't the person who has the final say, or there are other people involved, or they've missed out some steps and they've just wasted an awful lot of time. So here's when a few simple questions really come in handy. Things like, do you buy pens? If so, how many pens do you buy? Because maybe you will have gone through this whole process and sold the person a pen, and they'll come back at the end and say, "Oh, that's great. Yeah, I bought that pen. You actually didn't realize that I'm a senior purchase manager for a Fortune 500 company, and yes, I was looking to outfit pens for something in the region of about 500 executives. So yeah, great, you sold me a pen. You lost out on 499. Don't make that mistake. Just make sure that you've got all the things lined up, that this person buys pens, that they're in a position to make the decision, and that you've got all the necessary players available in this little mini scenario, just to make sure that that's going to happen. Now comes the time when we start to ask those simple standard questions that give us an indication of what the buyer is really looking for. Also bearing in mind that the buyer is not necessarily the user. They could be two separate things in this scenario, and make sure that distinction is clear if it's going to be present. And with these open kind of questions about, who's going to be using the pen, what are the circumstances, what are their key priorities when they're assessing what pen that they perhaps want to be purchasing today, these are all the things that are going to feed into your presentation when you're making the selection. Now, hopefully, what the interviewer is feeding you is information that's going to be consistent with the pen that they've just provided you to sell. But they might be really putting the screws on here. And instead of describing the pen they've handed you, describe something totally different. Now, there's a couple different avenues you can go down at this juncture. One is to try to convince the person that, well, actually, they might also be interested in something more along the lines of what you've got available to sell them. Or you can just completely ignore the pen that the person has given you. And when it comes time for presentation, just hold up your imaginary pen and explain all of its features and benefits and how they tie in with what the person has just described to you. Hand them the imaginary pen to expand, and just show that you've not been thrown by them putting a little bit of a curveball into this scenario for you. Next comes demonstration time. And we're talking about a pen, so it's not going to be a terribly long demonstration. Just keep it short, simple as always, and just cover the key features, the weight, the feel, the quality of it. When it comes time, you'll have to make up a price point that is, roughly consistent with what you imagine this pen is going to be worth towards the end of your presentation when we come to actually making a trial close and a purchase. So, this is just where you're going to be pulling on all of your, sales skills to just quickly, concisely cover, why it is that this pen covers what the person was needing when they told you what they were looking for in a pen. After we've finished our little brief presentation on the pen, we're going to hand it over to the buyer, the interviewer, to allow them a chance to examine it and feel it. So as we do so, bear in mind that as in selling any object, you're going to be handling it with a bit of care, a bit of reverence, showing respect for both the object and for the potential purchaser of it, and allow them a moment in silence. Don't be trying to talk over them when they themselves are appraising the pen. They'll take a few moments to look over it, think about it, and so on. And then when they've had a few moments to do that, you're able to then come in and take it off to the next stage. So here we have trial close and objections. So in trial close, basically, we're just going to ask simple questions like, are you happy with that? Does that suit your needs? Shall we write it up? Any of these simple ways of just establishing, are we at a point where we're ready to make a decision on this and move forward? So at this stage, your interviewer may be like, yeah, great, let's move on. But they also might have a few more tricks up the sleeve to press you further on this, and I'm assuming that they will do. So be ready for some objections, be it on price, availability. They could throw up something about the color that that you can't change in the moment, and so on. And this is going to be the real thinking on your feet element of what's going to be happening here this afternoon with this interview. So, again, keep your cool, calm, handle the objections in the way that you would do any other objections, perhaps rephrase, okay, if I've understood you correctly, if we were able to do X, Y, and Z on this object, then, you would be good to go with it, for example. Or just make sure that you've clarified that the objection that they're putting out is the real objection, and it's not, say, a smoke screen for price or what have you, because that happens in the real world as well. So, okay, and then we're ready to move on to the next stage. Hopefully you've handled the objections successfully, and you're ready to move on to another close. And at this point, if this Q&A starts to drag on a little bit, then you're probably going to find that the interviewer is a little bit lost in perspective on just how important this is in the grand context of your job interview here at the moment. But put that aside for now. So it may be a case where they're asking for some price negotiation. By all means, if they're asking for some sort of volume discount, you can make up some small discount if that seems appropriate to you. Like, okay, if we're buying one, that's the price. If we're buying, 10 or more, we can do a small discount. If we're buying 50 or more, we can do a small discount or give you payment terms or what have you. If you need to put in a smaller sweetener to make the deal happen, just to show that you're used to dealing with these things on a regular basis and it's not going to phase you totally. And then we're not quite finished. Having concluded the deal, sold the pen, most interviewers would feel quite happy at this stage and be ready to move on to the next element of their job interview. But here's where you could really stand out from all the other candidates that have been asked probably this very same question. And that's by doing a couple of things. One, accessorize the sale. You've just sold a pen. They run out of ink. So your company also produces cartridges, if it's a fountain pen, ink refills and so on. So here's where the time comes to congratulate them on their purchase. Let them know that, yes, we have refills available in blue and black ink. Would you like me to include, one of each color with those, or color your choice along with the pen? They cost blah, 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 make up a price. Also let them know that you're interested in their ongoing business and even potentially recommendations. So let them know that your company, XYZ Pens, is there available to, provide refills on an ongoing basis for the pen or pens that they have just purchased, that we'd like to keep in touch with them from time to time because we often have new pens coming into our, portfolio selection. And if we see something that's really matching the criteria that they explained earlier, would they be open to us contacting them just to let them know that, these are also available in the market, should they be wishing to purchase more in the future. And, hey, having used the pen, if they like it, if they enjoy it, if they're happy with the service that our company has provided, we'd really appreciate it if you could tell your friends, recommend us, and thank them for their business in true sincerity, and then be ready to move on to your next question in the job interview.